Danny Warshay. I'm the Executive Director of the Nelson Center for Entrepreneurship. Really happy to see you all today. I always like kicking these things off by asking a question that some of you may have heard before. For how many of you is this your first Nelson Center for Entrepreneurship event? Well, welcome, especially all of you, because you're new to our crowd, but hope that this won't be your last opportunity to be with us, and appreciate your coming and joining us. It's also nice to see some old-timers and people who are continuing to come to our events. It means we're doing something well. I always want to emphasize the three pillars of what we do in our center. One is there's an academic grounding to what we do, so that's the curricular side. We teach classes. I just came from my class. There's Lindsay in the back, who's my teaching assistant. We're hiring more faculty. We're doing academic research, so there's a strong academic rigor to what we do. Number two, and this is good evidence of it, we're doing a lot of workshops and speakers and events, very generous people who come to campus and share their expertise with our students. And then three, we don't want to just teach you about entrepreneurship, we want to empower you with the resources to do it. And so there's the whole venture support component of our program. We run a summer accelerator that some of you know about called B-Lab. We provide mentorship. We provide increasing amounts of grant funding from just a few $100s to thousands of dollars that can move you along that developmental pathway of doing your own venture. There's a lot more. If you don't know already, although I'm sure everybody here knows, our website is entrepreneurship.brown.edu. And if you're not already on our periodic email update, you can go to that website, entrepreneurship.brown.edu, and sign up, and you'll hear about all these kinds of events. So thank you for being here. A real special thank you to Jordan and the whole team here from Buoy. We have heard of you for a while, and the splash that you've made. I guess that's that nautical thing. Right. And we are eager to help propel you forward and for you to propel us forward in all the ways that I'm sure you will. So I also want to warn you, I'm not being rude. Well, maybe I am being rude, but I can't stay for the whole event, but I wanted at least to thank you guys for being here, and thank you all for being here. Danny Warshay, I'm the Executive Director of the Nelson Center for Entrepreneurship. Thanks, everybody.
All right. So my name is Jordan Evans. I'm the founder of Buoy, class of 2014, Brown alum. I'm really fired up to be here. Came all the way from Atlanta, Georgia to hang out with you all. It's great to see some of the familiar faces from students, because Buoy is about students and specifically Brown University students, and get to meet some of you in person for the first time. So let's just jump right into it. In 2010, I was a freshman at Brown, and I came home after first semester and I found out some tough news. And that was that I had actually failed principles of economics. And I'll just be honest with you, at the time I experienced some more stress, anxiety, somewhat depression, more so than I had ever experienced before in my life. And fortunately, what got me through were my friends. My peers offered me words of wisdom, inspiration, and encouragement. Because at the time I was dejected. I legitimately felt like this guy right here, if you can't tell. I just felt like an epic failure, right? I was trying to lift the weight, like I thought I had it, I was used to being successful, and here you go, life happens. It smacks you in the mouth. Some of you guys are used to that. If you're into sports, you're used to that verbiage, or that rhetoric, rather. And so, along the way, I thought, or after that experience, obviously I graduated from Brown. Yeah, shout out to that. But as I began to think about, a way of creating a resource, an authentic resource for Brown University students to inspire and motivate and encourage one another on a regular basis, that's how Buoy was birthed, okay? So, Buoy as a noun is a flotation device. You've probably seen it floating in the ocean, but as a verb, it means to cause to become cheerful or more confident, to inspire. And so, again, like I said, I came from Atlanta, Georgia to do just that. And we've done some great things with Brown and now other campuses as well as we expand. And so I want to jump into it. Obviously, I'm grateful to the Nelson Center for sponsoring this event. It's a special opportunity to talk about a passion of mine, but also we'll talk about entrepreneurship as well. And I have a special guest that I want to introduce you guys to in just a moment as we get into a little bit about Buoy, okay? So, walking just through for your entrepreneurial insights, we started off Buoy thinking about, okay, inspiration, how do we figure this thing out? How do we navigate what students want? And so we asked 139 Brown students just some thoughtful questions around inspiration. Where do you get it from? Or is it from your friends? How do you use it in social media, etc.? And so a couple stats jump off at the screen for you here. The first is that 45% of Brown students reported that they were frequently stressed by classes or exams. By show of hands, how many of you guys have been stressed in the past week? A lot of hands, right? And so that was enough for us to say, we got to figure out something, right? And so the other statistic we took away was that 55% of Brown University students were frequently inspired or encouraged by their fellow Brown University peers. And so along the way, we tried this mobile application that engaged you all through quotes. Some of you maybe used it. But what happened when we didn't see as much engagement with our mobile app, we did, however, see individuals, you all, opening the emails. And so then we pivoted for those of you who are aspiring entrepreneurs, who love to talk about startups, etc. That's certainly a concept that you'll get familiar with. So I'll just jump into a little bit about what that looked like for us. So Buoy Inspirations is a social impact startup focused on enabling students, many of which are here today, many of us you see with the t-shirts on, to inspire one another through authentic student-centered testimonials. So that's really the core of Buoy. And so we talk about email. We have a little over 700 students at Brown who are subscribed to the Buoy newsletter. And so I wanted to, in a moment, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but kind of the big takeaway for you entrepreneurs is thinking about data and, proof points for success for a business. And so for us early on, we saw 57% of students were opening the emails, and that was pretty compelling. So here on the right, you can see Luke Marone, maybe a little bit difficult to see, but he just graduated recently. But we got a chance to write about him donating his bone marrow to a 35-year-old man who was struggling with leukemia. And so it was just remarkably compelling, an opportunity to identify somebody who took a pain and made use of their resources for themselves. And so we have countless examples, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So positivity picks, that's the core of what we do. Many of you have been featured in the positivity picks. These are the basically images of yourself, but also the write-up. And so the write-up entails talking about a humbling experience that you've had at Brown and how you used it to inspire your fellow peers. And so grateful to have a special guest with you all, also a Brown alum, who was one of the early just supporters of Buoy, and one that we also featured because she's doing some incredible work inspiring young people. And so we've had an instant connection ever since, relevant to inspiring young people and just making a difference, period. So I want to introduce Yaneli Espinal, class of 2011, to talk to you a little bit about what she's been doing, which is incredibly inspiring, focused on financial literacy for millennials. And as we talked last night, she just said pretty simply, I just want to help people. And so I'm inspired by her, I look up to her, and I want her to just be able to share a little bit about what it meant for her to be featured as a positivity pick for Buoy, but then also tell you a little bit about Miss Be Helpful. So without further ado, join me in welcoming Yaneli Espinal.
Thank you.
I can click for you.
You got it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jordan. So yeah, when Jordan reached out to me a few months ago, probably back in like February, March. And I was really honored. I was excited that Jordan was paying attention, right? And that other people were paying attention to what I was doing. So I graduated back in 2011, and before coming to Brown, I've never lived outside of Brooklyn, New York. So it was my first experience leaving my home. My parents immigrated here from the Dominican Republic, so I was a first generation, low income student, but that was, to me, a point of shame. When I walked around campus, I didn't want anyone to know that was my story, because it was very, it was something that was taboo. You don't tell people that you're struggling. You don't talk about it. And so I witnessed many nights in my dorm, you know, my friends crying, talking about how they didn't know if they were going to be able to come back to campus next semester because they couldn't pay their student loans, or they couldn't get money to pay their tuition. And so that was a huge part of my existence. It's a giant stain on my 4 years at Brown, that the tears that my friends, you know, wept, and how much advice and guidance I had to try to provide. But I felt in all of that so weirdly lucky to be poor, because I had gotten a full ride to Brown. And so I was like, how is it that somebody like me doesn't have to worry about any of this? I'm here like, oh, sitting here, like, but I felt so lucky. But at the same time, I didn't know, you know, what that all meant. So it wasn't until I graduated that I started to really see that there was actually a student loan debt crisis in this country. And that was sort of my entry point into money and finance, personal finance specifically. You know, so I started to talk to people who were like, oh yeah, no, I have all this debt. I can't think about it. It's just piling up, and the compound interest is going up. I can't. And that's just part of life. And people just deal with this. This is just America. Like, that's what it is. And so it's kind of scared me that so many people normalized walking around with huge amounts of debt, so much so that, you know, credit card debt becomes normal, student loans debt become normal, you know, student loan debt becomes normal, car loans become normal, personal loan debt becomes normal. And so I was like, okay, this can't be right. So I started reading more about it, doing my own nerdy research, got really energized and passionate about it. And then I said, okay, there's definitely a way to not be swamped by debt and to actually sit down and plan for what your situation is, no matter what your situation is. But people aren't being taught how or what that looks like. And so I decided to start talking about it myself, because it didn't exist at the time, especially not in a way that felt relatable and accessible to people like me, or to me. I can only speak for myself. So I would go online and watch, like, you know, Dave Ramsey or like Susie Orman. I'm like, these people don't know what my experience is like. How can they sit here and tell me stop buying Starbucks? Like, that's not going to work. and so then I decided to really just go to YouTube and start talking to people myself. So, Johnny, you can go ahead to the next slide.
Okay.
Essentially, this was a couple of days ago. I just took a screenshot of currently where my YouTube channel is. So I started going to YouTube and just talking about my own experience. Hey, this is what I did to get an apartment that's affordable. This is what I did to pay off my credit card debt when I graduated Brown. This is what I did to not, you know, allow my compound interest to accumulate on my, like, small student loan that I did take out to go abroad, whatever, right? And so just talking about it was part one, because this is such a taboo topic. Like, as soon as you mention money, people are like, no, don't go there. So just talking about it, putting it out there, making it fun and engaging, try to use my personality, try to really get people hooked on just the content, right, the topic. And also just making it so that I wasn't using super jargony terms and trying to make it feel like, oh, that's big language words, I don't know what that means. It already feels like I can't understand it, I don't want to watch again or interact with it again. So I try to stay away from that and really explain it in basic terms. I did not expect the growth that came from this, and this is just a testament to the fact that this is needed. So many young people like us, and people older and younger alike, need to be talking about this and need to be given resources and provided resources. So my channel's almost at 17,000 subscribers, and I get a ton of emails and phone calls, and people are just like, wow, I see what you're doing. People partnering with me like Jordan to do some amazing events where I get to tell my story and talk to people and tell them, hey, stop pushing it off and stop ignoring it, and like really put it at the forefront of your mind as something that you can feel empowered and inspired and motivated to take on. Take the bull by the horns. Don't ignore it and avoid it and do what people do, you know, the average person does, because it will only make things significantly, exponentially harder for you later. So that's sort of where I am right now with the channel. But more importantly, the kind of work that I'm really passionate about doing is the in-person live work, connecting with human faces every day, right? So I do motivational speaking events. I go to high schools in New York City. I go to colleges around the country as often as I can. I did an event at Brown just recently for the First Gen Low Income Center during senior week this past spring. So I tried as much as I can to just really get out there and tell my story, because it's one thing for you to see a video on YouTube of some girl who's saying some things versus seeing a person who's breathing in front of you, telling you their story and connecting with you on it. So I'm really happy to have seen some of the growth and humbled by some of the success that has come out of this work that I'm doing. Forbes put an article out about me online. BBC reached out to me and did a BBC Minute feature about my story. And so it's just like, it goes to show that there's possibility for us to really bring this to the forefront and stop allowing it to continue to be a taboo and a force of negative weight on us, right, as young people. So just wanted to kind of let you all know that I'm here today as a resource. I'm so excited to have been in the spotlight on Jordan's page, but also just want you all to know I'm here as a resource, fully supporting Buoy. One thing that I definitely took away from one of the recent posts on the page was a quote by Maya Angelou, which was, people don't remember the words you say or the things you do, but they remember the way you made them feel. And so Buoy's all about that, is making sure that what you feel is what you remember. And I know when I was at Brown, I felt amazing being back here today. I feel that again. But the one thing I did feel that I wasn't able to get to shed light on was talking about financial resources, personal finance, money, what's going to happen when I graduate, what do I owe, who do I owe it to, how do I pay it? And so I want to kind of motivate us and make us feel inspired to take that on and not feel like it's a negative aspect of our lives. So reach out to me, come talk to me if you can after. I'm here as a resource, here to help. And thank you for your time today.
Awesome. Round of applause to you, Elliot. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no
Appreciate it.
problem.
Great job. Like I said, I'm inspired by her and what she does. It's incredible to pick up this cause and just run with it. And that kind of fuels me as well. So what we want to do, both of us are building brands, have a little bit of a Q&A. Obviously, we are in the home of the Entrepreneurship Center, and it's a great opportunity for us to kind of share along the way. I've found my stable of current students who I'm kind of mentoring through this entrepreneurship thing continues to grow, even here specifically at Brown. So it's a lot of fun for me to be able to provide insights, answer questions, and so Yaneli's also going to join as well. I want to invite somebody up from our team, one of our also positivity pick features, Divya Mehta, to come and join us. She's going to kind of moderate a little bit of a discussion. These are some of the common questions that I get asked, and also we'll probably keep this a little bit brief, but we'll have time at the end to answer more questions and just have an authentic dialogue. So without further ado, I'll bring Divya up for a couple questions that Yaneli and I will be able to answer and kind of talk a little bit about in our journey as entrepreneurs.
I'll introduce myself as well. Hi, I'm Divya. I'm a senior at Brown studying international relations. I think I'm probably the only one, maybe one other person who's an international student here. Let's see how many internationals.
See a couple hands.
Awesome. Cool. I'm from India. I grew up in the Czech Republic for a little bit. Jordan reached out to me, featured me, and that was great. Kind of gave me the starting point to go on and do my own sort of features on my own Instagram because I'm working towards my personal trainer certification right now. So thank you.
We can tell.
So yeah, I guess this is a good time to ask you a couple of questions because I'm actually really curious. What's the toughest part of being an entrepreneur and building a brand?
Should I take it?
Yeah, take that.
All right. So let me talk about entrepreneurship. Yaneli and I, we're both social impact, so driven by just purpose, right? And so I think one of the toughest parts is you got to get used to people who don't believe in your vision. But what's going to drive you is if it's attached to something that impacts other people in a positive way and it's not really driven by monetary incentive and gain. That's my short answer.
Yeah, I think the difficult part is building awareness. It's really, there's so much junk that exists on the internet, as I'm sure that you know. And so differentiating yourself from the junk and making sure that your stuff stands out as legitimate and trying to really make an impact that's a positive force in the world can definitely be difficult when people are sifting through, sometimes willingly, through junk. So it's really, it's difficult to really make that a place for yourself, but all the more fire and reason why you should continue.
Yeah, I like that.
And why social entrepreneurship? Where is the money?
Yeah, that's a common one. People ask, what is social impact? What is social entrepreneurship? So it's a good question because I think one of the biggest things you learn, particularly as you study some of common social platforms like Instagram, and people have hundreds of thousands of followers and they're building brands and things like that. For me, social entrepreneurship, because like Yaneli had mentioned yesterday, the desire to help people. And so I challenge you all who are considering entrepreneurship to find something that you'll do without anybody kind of pushing you to do it. Like, I probably like Yaneli, can get up in the middle of the night with an idea and write it down. And it's not driven by me collecting a check. And not to say that there's not an opportunity to do that, but I recently listened to one of the co-founders of Hulu, and what I thought was really compelling is he talks about like missionary entrepreneurs who find a cause that is something that they're dedicated to, and they work harder than the smart, intelligent, sophisticated, and they're more driven. And they're gonna hold on to something even when they fail, figure out a way to push forward and figure out like the next solution. So, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, in short, money comes and goes, and and I've learned that through the work that I'm doing. But at the end of the day, the one thing doesn't leave me is that passion and the fire to. Sometimes I'm like, if I can't sleep, I just get up out of my bed and go edit videos to post, and I'm like, maybe this will lead to views and money, but maybe it won't. And the point is, I'm really excited about this, and I am so pumped about this work. And so if that wasn't there, I don't know that I could just show up to work and do some work for money. It's for me, I think you know yourself well by the time you graduate college, and if you can do something that's very empty for money, and you might do that for a while just to raise money, to then leave and do something that really fires you up. But I've kind of hit that point already where I knew pretty early on when I graduated Brown that I needed to be doing something in service of others. And so I did Teach for America right out of Brown, taught for a few years, and realized I need to keep teaching and I need to keep educating people, and this is what my calling is, but not in the classroom with the little lovely children that I was with all day, every day. I love them. They drove me crazy. So it was definitely something that I had to think more about, and then I found a platform to still continue to teach and educate, but in a way that fires me up every day.
Before we go to the next one, any questions offhand that anybody had, feel free. If not, we'll cover a couple. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, what about the mobile app? Did it work, and maybe is it something you think was tied to that time frame, or would it work nowadays if you were to try that?
That's a good question, and I could talk for a long time about that because it also give you perspective. I've been working on Buoy for 2 years. And so it originally started off as this application. Some of you guys may have tried it. I know we were here in September of last year, and we had a bunch of students download. We got a couple hundred students to use the application. But along the way, we were getting students to submit an inspirational quote. And how the application worked is Brown students submit a quote, we pick one, and we'd feature it each day. And you get a push notification, and you see your inspirational quote, okay? And so we thought, great, this is cool. We were getting people to download it, but they weren't coming back to it. And so, I can get down into details about this, but as it relates to building a platform to have people generate their own content, it takes like this restructuring of kind of your thought process. Just like you guys post on Snapchat or Facebook, like you guys think about the brand and like the culture very quickly. And so it takes a little bit of time to do that. And we were trying to solve that problem. Ultimately, we realized it was a novel idea, but also you pay attention to the data and you keep seeing people opening the emails and responding about the emails. We made a decision to pivot. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess on a similar note, just kind of a cliche topic, growth hacking. Did you kind of notice any tips or tricks that once you implemented, you're like, oh my God, my ROI just like jumped up. Like maybe you like subscribe and like share, and then you enter this contest, yada yada, or maybe you bring some friends in, you gamify it, maybe you did targeted Facebook ads. Was there anything that I guess like broader and narrow that kind of like just help you grow overnight?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want Yaneli to answer that because we were talking about this late last night. We both love this stuff, so she was telling me about growing her subscriber following on YouTube.
Yeah, I think this might be very specific to YouTube, but I was very obsessed with my analytics for a while, and so I quickly realized that the more often I was generating and creating and posting, much more traction was coming to my page. And that's obviously embedded in the YouTube algorithm, is that the more you create and the more people are coming to your page, the more they're suggesting your videos on the side to people. So I was like, so let me try, instead of doing a video a week, I'm gonna do like 3 videos a week or 4 videos a week or a video every day. And immediately I went from like 10 to 16,000 subscribers, not overnight, but almost overnight. It was like almost like I couldn't even believe it. But to have that be sustainable for me was something I was like, oh man, I got a 9 to 5. I work with kids during the day. I can't, this is gonna be a lot. So that's been the challenge for me. But yeah, and honestly, when it comes to any of these platforms, the constant generating brings attention, and then certain platforms really sort of reward you for that constant participation, engagement, creation of content, and commenting on people's, responding, liking what they say to you, engaging with them, responding almost to every comment, almost even, really brought more traction to the page. So really be on there and spend the time and put the effort in. That's what I would say.
Let's do, Divya, if you do one more question, and then we'll have some time at the end, we'll pick back up. But let's do one more question, and then I got some cool stuff we can do. And this is going to be a dialogue, so we're not just going to be talking at you guys the whole time. So
I guess what's your most exciting part of being early entrepreneurs?
I mean, for me, it's just the possibilities. Like when you're a late phase entrepreneur, you've made a lot of decisions already, like things have happened and you kind of maybe need to decide to adjust course. I haven't made that many decisions yet. It's so young. I'm like, 16K is a baby channel, and I'm like, I can't wait to hit 100K. I can't wait to hit the point where I'm like, now I have, an actual platform, and now I can do so many things for the good. And so I think it's just that, the endless possibilities. I can take it wherever I want it to go.
And for me, I think my favorite part is just being able to, again, it's social impact, it's help people. It just taps into this moral compass, again, that I say, if you can find it for yourself, something that you really want to do, nobody's really going to be able to outwork you. I think sometimes I got overwhelmed thinking about entrepreneurship, and you hear certain, brands talk about, I live, slept, I don't sleep, all I do is work. But when you're driven by a cause far greater than you, it's really compelling. So to be tapped into that mode, you can just work and get stuff done and, make significant strides. So that's been a lot of fun. Also, when you're doing something relevant to social impact, a lot of people will show you support, like the university. And, I would say it's rewarding. So great. Thanks, Divya, for coming up and moderating some of our Q&A. So I wanted to just quickly, by show of hands, how many of you guys are subscribed to the Buoy newsletter currently? Show of hands. Just a couple. Great, that's awesome. So have just a kind of fun activity. Buoy is about meeting students exactly where you are. So I'm not that far removed from Brown, and what I loved was free stuff. So that being said, whoops, I think we jumped a couple slides, or maybe, okay, cool. So buoynews.com is the website. What I'd love to do, because I have a couple of items that I brought for you all in the form of gift cards. And so if you're not subscribed, I'd like to welcome you to subscribe. I actually have on my phone like the direct channel. So as soon as you subscribe, I'd like to just give away a couple things to say, hey, thanks for subscribing. And it's an opportunity for you guys to benefit. So I know everybody has a cell phone here.
Can I participate?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Yaneli, you can't subscribe.
I'm already subscribed.
And I was gonna say, if I can find my cell phone. Oh, it's in my back pocket. For those of you who are already subscribed, I know we're having a couple other giveaways that we're gonna do as well. So have no fear.
Do you want me to grab anything, Jordan?
No, I've got it. So, wow, we got 3 people. So I always like getting the first person at the table because I like that passion and drive. So give me a second here. Wow, we got a lot of people coming in here. Lindsay Rep. She in the building? Okay. Are you a student? Oh, okay. I was like, you're
I know Luke, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know Luke.
I'm
Awesome.
excited
Here you
to
go.
see that.
Well, congratulations, Lindsay. Let's do at least one more. I'm gonna pick these at random. All right. Is there a Jordan Ross? Ah, my man. Here you go. So yeah,
Nice.
just a little gift card from the Buoy team to you all. And what I'd like to do next is have a little bit of an activity for you guys. So this is something that's kind of cool. So to tell you a little bit about Buoy, it starts here at Brown, but I was just at the University of Michigan a couple weeks ago and got a chance to talk to a number of students, and they had a lot of fun with this. So the way it works is I'm going to show you guys 4 quotes. And what I'd like for you to do is just identify which one most resonates with you, and talk to the person next to you, basically just discuss why. And so we'll give you just a couple minutes to do so. Once you've kind of conversed for a few minutes, then we'll bring it back together and we'll have just like a brief dialogue about it, and I'll ask for some people to volunteer and share. Does that sound good? Is everybody on board? All right, cool. So can you guys read the screen first of all? Just kind of, sort of? All right. So, any volunteers that would like to share which one they most resonated with them and a little bit about why? Katie, go ahead.
My name is Katie. The one that resonated with me is the bottom right one. Being an athlete, I was kind of drawn to that one. And when I think of catcher's mitt on both hands, I think of defense, right? So you're kind of on the defensive of life, just kind of taking whatever it throws at you, but not really like doing anything about it. But then when I think about taking one off and throwing something back, I think about offense. So you're taking what life throws at you and turning it into something positive that you can then kind of like throw back at life and make that into something positive.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. Good job. Anybody else? Any other? Yeah.
I like the one about it being impossible, how using that term is, somewhat naive, and I think in the time we're living in, whether it's race, whether it's gender, whether it's technology, I think we're at the forefront of everything that is possible in the world, and especially going to an institution that allows us to utilize so many resources, we should expect that anything is possible. We should take advantage of everything we are given.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially if you're thinking about entrepreneurship, I mean, there's times that it gets lonely. You feel like, why am I doing this? But along the way, if you can kind of overcome that, you'll be successful, for sure. Did you have your hand up? Yeah, go ahead. What's your name, by the way? Sadu. Nice to meet you.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So I like the life is short one. I actually would have, if I could, change it a little bit. I'd say life is short, smile, even if you don't have teeth. But I get that, like, it's still, while you have teeth, because it's short, it's the shortness of life that it's describing. Anyway, I like it just because it emphasizes the need for a positive attitude, and that, challenges will come and go, and there will be rough times and good times, and just but all of, try to keep a positive attitude towards everything. So.
Anybody ever seen that one? The life is short, smile always. A couple people? Okay, cool. What about one more? Anybody else that maybe personally you thought like this is something that I could have identified with like this past week or month, or could have helped me? Any other comments?
Yeah, go ahead.
We got one? Oh, go ahead.
I'm Yvonne. Because I also was talking about how the last one with Maya Angelou resonated with me. Because I felt like going through life with both catcher's mitt on both hands, I felt like that kind of gives people a defeatist attitude if you're saying like, oh, I'm just going to take whatever life gives me. And it's, I think you should be able to of course accept the things that maybe you can't change, but it's like you should be able to like they said, throw something back. So being able to change your circumstance, or even if you can't change something, being able to even just change your outlook is a way of saying, I'm not just gonna take it. And I feel like in my life I've done that because I've had people where it's like, oh, this is the norm, you should just accept it as it is. And it's like I've tried to work against that because of how I view certain things in life. And so I just felt like that's important with of course there's moments you might not can change stuff, but even just changing your outlook itself, that's not just accepting it with both hands. So again, not being defensive, but instead taking the offense and throwing back at life.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, good. So I know some of you may have class, but so what I shared these quotes with you as examples. And so here you'll actually see these are the students, if you can see the screen, these are the students that actually submitted these quotes. Get a chance to interview students on a regular basis. These are Brown University students, Is Sophia in here? No. Okay, so I know some of you probably know some of these individuals, right? But I think it's powerful to identify inspiration collectively, right? Something that maybe resonates with you, but also someone else. And so I like being able to show you guys where that connection happens. So, well, great. So, in an effort for time, talk a little bit about Buoy. We talked about fun. Buoy's a lot about fun, but it's also about inspiration. So, we did this when we launched in September. We were in Harambe House, and a lot of people enjoyed it. So, what I would like to ask is if you guys are willing, we'll all come up to the front. I know you guys have had your eyes on the silly string over here, and we're about to have a lot of fun, okay? I came from Atlanta, Georgia to have fun with you all. So that being said, if you guys keep your laptops and all that stuff over there, what we're gonna do is pretty simple. We're gonna do a countdown, because again, this is the first ever Buoy meetup, but we're gonna do this again and continue to just have fun with it. So come on up. Everybody, if you could grab one can, and then we'll get the countdown going.